All right. Image stabilized binoculars, not only the Sig Zulu 6s, now I've got the Kite 18 by 50s. The technology, we're gonna dive deep into it. 7 or 8 months ago, I put out this video, go check it out. I dove deep into this binocular, in particular the Sig Zulu 6s, but today, I'm gonna address all the questions I've been barraged with since that video. The big one that everybody is asking me is, can you actually simplify your Western big game glassing system, right? We're talking chest binoculars, big magnification binoculars like the Swirl 15 by 56s and the Spotter. Can you take one of those out of the system, reduce the cost, reduce the weight, reduce the bulk? That is a valid question. I'll dive deep into that. The other big one that I'm gonna discuss and I'm gonna give you guys some prescriptions for is the whole vertigo, seasickness deal that people experience with these binoculars and this technology. In my opinion, 19 out of 20 people, you can solve that before it's an issue. And even if it is an issue for you, you've dealt with it, you've bought some of these binoculars, you love them, but you keep getting woozy, you keep getting vertigo. I can show you how to mitigate that some from what I've seen by putting these in the hands of now probably 20, 30 different hunters across the experience levels. The last thing I'll talk about is it the right time to buy IS binoculars? In the hunting optics world, it's a shifting target, right? There's gonna be more options, there's gonna be bigger objective sizes. Who knows what these companies are gonna do? And I'm not talking about just the companies that are already using IS in their binoculars. There's a bunch of other companies that are considering diving into that world and integrating it into their optics. So what's that gonna look like in 24 months? Should you buy now? Should you wait? It's the hardest question of them all, but I'll give you my opinion. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, so I wanted to mention that I'm having these custom skinning knives made. These are called Cliff Skinner. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I've had this knife made the way that it's made. Got a short video on the website. The details are there. pursuitwithcliff.com. Click in the corner up by shop, you'll see Cliff Skinner. Click that puppy, you'll get all the details. All right, the motion sickness part of this whole deal, I know it can be the most frustrating, but we're not talking about the same type of motion sickness that you get when you're getting on a boat. For me personally, if I'm blue water spearfishing, I get vertigo in the water. We're talking about a different thing in the sense that it's much more controllable. So what I have seen, particularly among newer glassers, newer hunters, when they pick up a pair of stabilized binoculars, the first thing they do is just move too damn quickly. If you hand a pair of classic binoculars without IS technology in them to a person who has glassed quite a bit, they've hunted quite a bit, and they say to you, hey, I'm just gonna look at this real quickly, it's not that quickly, right? They'll put the binoculars up and this is fast glassing, right? This is a fast pace. That's as fast as you're gonna see people go. The issue is that newer guys, and not just newer guys, but for sure it's more common amongst those. I saw this in some of my seminars where I had people that were there on their first hunt. They pick up binoculars that even if without the IS technology, they've got that off or they've got classic binoculars, they glass like this. Pretty darn fast. And then they turn on the stabilization, they click that button, and now because that sight picture is so much more solid, instead of going too fast, now they're going way too fast because their brain is thinking, hey, this is solid, I'm just gonna look all over. I have no problem with vertigo, no problem with seasickness with this technology or any of the binoculars I've tried, the Kites, the Sigs, the different variations of magnification with the Sigs. I have no problem. But the minute I artificially start to go fast with them, I start to get sick and I start to get uncomfortable. I know that's part of the issue. So first prescription, first recommendation right off the bat is don't go too fast. Sounds obvious, but it is an issue. And I think it's exacerbated by the fact, and this is for experienced hunters, experienced glassers, and newer glassers, that stabilization, because it feels so solid, you do tend to want to move them faster in a lot of types of situations. Just try to mitigate that a little bit. The other recommendation, and this is going to be a little counterintuitive, you guys are going to scream at the video and go, hey, that's exactly why I bought image stabilized binoculars, so I don't have to do that. But what I'm going to tell you is to frame a little bit when it's convenient. Mitigate that movement when it's possible and easy, right? So for instance, if I'm driving my vehicle and I want to glass a little bit out of my truck, With stabilized binoculars, you know, binoculars with IS, I'm not gonna turn that engine off. That little minimal movement, I don't have to worry about. The IS is gonna take care of that engine movement, right? But I've got my window rolled down. I'm not just gonna freehand the binoculars out the window when it's super easy for me to just set my elbows on the base of the door there where it's solid. Control the movement when you can. This sounds counterintuitive. That's what the stabilization is supposed to do, right? I think what's happening for a lot of people is their brain is saying, hey, there should be some movement in this optic. It's unsupported. Like, you know, I can feel my arms moving, but I'm not getting any input of movement through my eyes, and that's what creates the vertigo. That relative difference is what makes people sick. So if you can control it a little bit, you're gonna have way less exposure to that potential wooziness, uncomfortable feeling that you can get. So that's the other big thing you can do. Now, a very practical thing you can do, and this is the lowest hanging fruit of all, everybody is carrying their binoculars in a bino harness, or 90% of the time now. You've got them in there. Develop the habit of when you dive in to get your IS binoculars, put your finger on the switch right there as you grab the binocular. Before you put the binocular to your eyes, click on the technology. And what this does is it makes sure that you never are bringing the binoculars to your eyes without the technology. You've got all the shakiness in there that's pre-IS, and then you throw on the technology and boom, it just kind of shocks the system, right? All of a sudden, everything is solid. That's when you get that weird feeling. It doesn't quite calculate in your brain, and you're more likely to get sick. So just develop the habit every time you pick the binocular up, turn that on, and then every time you put it back in your pack, you can turn it off. When I do that, I don't feel any issues at all. The other bonus is you're doing it on the up and you're doing it on the down. When you make sure you turn these off before you put them in your harness, yes, they will turn off anyways if you leave them on when there's no movement, but if you're in a vehicle, you're in a side-by-side, that constant movement, they're gonna stay on and that drains your battery. And just to show you guys here, the different ones that I have seen, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know, I don't have any insider knowledge on this, but the different brands, these are Sigs, these are Kites, there's a lot of similarities. I don't know if they're being made in the same facilities. I don't know if the same engineers are engineering them. I have no idea, but the eyepieces are very similar. There's a lot of similarities between the different brands and the different binoculars that are out there that are including this IS. All of them have that switch right there in a place where it's very easy to pre-turn on the stabilization before you lift the binocular. They're doing that on purpose. These guys know that this can be an issue for a lot of folks. The last thing I'll say on this, and this is gonna be a little woo-woo for you guys, but be preemptive about it. So if right now you're thinking about buying IS binoculars, probably looking at the Sigs, you're trying to figure out which magnification to buy or whatever. We'll get into that more here in a minute. But before you buy them or right when you buy them, don't push it and see if you're gonna get sick. What you don't wanna do is get crazy, throw on the IS and be like, hey, can I get sick? Can I go fast enough where this is gonna push me over the edge? Can I just constantly hold them completely unsupported and just go, you know, all over the place? You can feel the gyro bouncing around in there. Don't do that. Absolutely, once you get sick with these, it's creating some sort of brain pathway. I saw this in a bunch of my seminars. The first day, if I gave a hunter a pair of these and without any guidance and they got sick, they got uncomfortable, they got woozy, 3 or 4 days later, I was like, hey, try them again. They either immediately get sick or it takes 15 minutes and all of a sudden they're uncomfortable again, right? Once you develop kind of that fear of getting sick from them, it's very hard to get over that. And I know that sounds wild, but I saw the data set. Early on, I had a lot of people getting uncomfortable using the binoculars. Once I learned to tell them a few things and integrated a few things before they even touched them and turned on that technology, almost nobody got sick. If you've already bought them and you've already developed that, you've already come to the conclusion that you're getting sick from them, try those other things and see if that helps you. Maybe it'll get you out of that groove. All right, so the question now is, can I simplify my system? Can I have a better system that's less bulk, less weight, and is cheaper? First thing I'll say, if you are primarily carrying just a chest binocular, these are in a lot of situations going to improve what you have. The only exception that I could see is if you're very dependent on a range finding binocular. As a guide, I am very dependent on a range finding binocular. And right now there are no stabilized binoculars that have range finding capabilities. That may come out in the future, but just to address that question for you guys, I have really pushed on some of these companies to get a feel for if that's the case, and it sounds like it's gonna be a while. They've got to figure out that technology. There's a lot going on there between the stabilization and potentially integrating the range finding at the same time. So one of those first questions right off the bat, if that's what you're holding out for, I wouldn't worry about it. It might be a couple years. Buy what you want to buy right now and don't consider that something imminent. Prove me wrong if you're a company out there, but the feeling I got is that's not the case. Now, if that's not an issue and you just want a good chest binocular, particularly if you're a newer hunter and you haven't been using super high-end Swaros or Leicas, that really high-end glass, go consider IS technology that's out there right now, particularly the Sig Zulu 6s. They're small, lightweight, and they really work. And I feel like if you haven't tried that high-end glass, you're actually going to like these binoculars more. And the reason I say that is you don't realize what you're missing out. You're just focused on the results. A lot of people are having trouble with the SIGs because they're individuals that have been spoiled with very good glass. They know in their heart of hearts when they sit next to their buddy who's got Swaros, who's got Leicas, and they pull out their Sig Zulus and you start glassing, they know that they're gonna beat their buddy with a binocular that's 1/3 the cost. But they're not gonna be as comfortable doing so. It's just not as comfortable. It's just not quite as fun to be looking through lenses, the actual glass in there that's not as crisp, not as clear. That stumbles a lot of people who are used to really high-end optics. But if you're a newer guy, don't worry about that. You know, a lot of those hunts where you don't have to glass over 700 or 800 yards, you're gonna be good to go with the 12x42 Sig or a 16x42 Sig. I'll get into, you know, why you might choose one over the other here in a second. But that's the answer. It's just gonna save you some time. It's a great budget option. You're gonna get a lot of utility out of it. Now, if you're using a more complex system, you've got a spotter, you got big 15x56s from Vortex or Swaro or whoever, and then you've got your chest binocular. For a lot of people, you're going to be able to put down those big magnification binoculars and potentially never use them again, and instead go into the IS technology with the options that are out there right now. This is where you've got to kind of understand why the current offerings are what they are. Sig has got binoculars that are primarily in the 42mm objective, and even these Kites, these are just 50mm objectives. You're not seeing bigger objectives than that right now because they want these binoculars to be less bulky, lighter weight, so they're a comfortable chest binocular. That's a huge advantage of these things. And so that's a bonus. And then what they're able to do because of the IS technology, they're able to use a smaller objective with a higher magnification. If you tried to do that without the IS technology, and ironically, this goes back to, you know, one of the issues that people have been having with IS technology, the whole seasickness thing. If you try to handhold a pair of classic 56 objective 15s from Swaro, you will get sick because there's so much motion in there from you trying to handhold that magnification. 90% of people will get sick after 10-15 minutes of glassing. I get barf sick after 10 minutes of trying to hold a pair of really high-end 15x56s. It's just that magnification I can't handle. So what Sig's doing when they put out a 12x42 or a 16x42 objective chest binocular, that IS is controlling that movement, and therefore people can use a higher magnification chest binocular. That's what they've nailed with these. So in a lot of ways, that is exactly what you're looking for, right? You can get rid of that higher magnification binocular and just have a higher magnification chest binocular. Now, what do you give up when you do that? What Sig and Kite have given up with choosing these smaller objectives? Kite's a little less so with these 18x50s. What they're giving up with that lower objective is exit pupil, right? So their exit pupil is lower, and what exit pupil is, just so you guys know, The numerator is the objective size, the denominator is the magnification. As your magnification goes up, your exit pupil drops. So if you have a 5, let's say like an 8 by 42, that is a 5 exit pupil roughly, right? 40 over 8. That type of exit pupil is gonna give you a tremendous amount of light gathering, lots of clarity in low light conditions, really good color. You're gonna be able to see that color. For years, I've used an 8 by 42 classic chest binocular because I'm colorblind. I wanna pick up a little bit more depth of color. That exit pupil matters a whole lot. When you go to these binoculars that are 12 by 42s, that exit pupil drops drastically. So you have less light gathering, less clarity of color, less performance in low light conditions, less crisp picture. So that's what you give up in these optics. What the IS folks are betting on is that even if you give that up, the stabilized technology is gonna get you results. For the most part, that is the case. Now, when you get to comparing, these are the 16 by 42s to the 12 by 42 SIGs. Me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I have been using the 12s more than the 16s because of this exit pupil trade-off. When I get into the 16 by 42s, the exit pupil is so low, that light gathering is so low in low light conditions that I feel like it's very marginal whether it's worth it. I'd rather just have the 12s, the lower magnification where I get a little more clarity in those conditions. Now that's gonna vary on when you're using them. I'm very dependent on low light conditions in the morning and at night, given the species that I hunt, in the conditions that I hunt. I've got a whole video on time management that dives into that. You can check that video out right here. It's not always gonna be like that, but if you guys are hunting heavily pressured animals, that's mostly gonna be the case, right? That's critical to have that light gathering ability. So for me, I love the trade-off of going from an 8 by 42, a 10 by 42 classic chest binocular to an IS binocular. I love that, but I'm not willing to jump all the way up to a 16 with a 42 millimeter objective because I give up so much on the low light performance side of things. So I stick to the 12s. All right, now with new entrants like Kite, and I don't know if they're new, but they're somebody out there that's not getting a lot of press, I guess, in the IS world, at least in the hunting world. The Kites that I have here are 18 by 50s, so a bigger objective. Now, check these out. This is what you give up, and this is what has been a big advantage of IS, is look at the size difference here. These are quite a bit bigger on the bulk side of things. They're actually not that much heavier. They're lighter than my classic chest binocular, 10 by 42, 8 by 42 chest binocular. These are actually lighter, even though they have a larger objective, but they are heavier than these Sig Zulu 6s, and obviously they're way more bulky. For me, kind of depends on the type of hunt I'm going on. If I feel like I'm gonna be glassing out there past 1,000 yards, I might take these as my chest binocular over my Sig 12 by 42s. What I'd really like to try is something like a 12 by 50, or a 15 by 50 in the IS technology, because I think that might be the sweet spot for me where I'm giving up a little magnification, but I'm picking up that low light performance that I want. But for sure, check out these 18 by 50s if you think that might be a solution for you. A couple other things just so you guys know on these, they do come with a tripod adapter, which is nice. I put a post-market tripod adapter on the SIGs because they don't come with one. This is the AZAC, it just wraps around there. There's a couple other ones. I know Tricer makes one. This one I've been very happy with. Simple, works, durable, no problem. At higher magnification, a lot of times you're gonna sit these on a tripod between glassing sessions. You're covering a lot of ground. Makes sense, right? So that's already on these. The other thing about the Kites is they actually have both options. You can have a AA in there, or you can have rechargeable USB. These ones right here, they're rechargeable USB. Handy for me because a lot of my stuff now, my lights, all my rechargers in my camp, all of that stuff, I have them. They've got the USB cable, so I can just charge these up on there. That's nice. The reality is the AA option for the SIGs, or if you go with the AA option for the Kites, it's pretty easy to have a couple extra AA's laying around. And the battery life is good on all of them. They don't use that much power, so not a big factor, but just wanted to mention that. That's the options that you have right now. And really just decide based on how important that low light performance is, that's gonna indicate how much magnification you should be choosing, which one of these options is best for you. Now, some people are gonna squeak and say, well, what about field of view? So something very odd with field of view when it comes to IS technology, and I have not been able to get a straight answer from the companies on this. But basically all the binoculars that I've talked about, the 12x42 SIGs, the 16x42 SIGs, and the Kites that I just showed you, the 18x50s, they all have essentially the same field of view, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You would think as the objective stays the same, as the magnification goes up, that field of view would shrink a little bit, but it really doesn't if you look at the stats. But that is something that people are gonna talk about when they talk about different magnification, or they'll just talk about the fact that at higher magnifications, it's hard to acquire targets. Personally, I disagree with that perspective when it comes to IS technology. And I think part of it is just technique. It could be personal preference, but for me, I've developed a way with IS technology to acquire targets quicker. So if I am using the 16x42s, if I was using the 18x50 Kites, that's a pretty tight magnification with these smaller field of views you're getting out of these IS technologies to actually see an animal. But if you do what I was suggesting, every time you lift the binocular up, there's a deer 150 yards away, I've got a 16 power binocular in my hand. Every time I lift it up, I'm clicking on the IS, going to my eyes. I've got a solid image stabilized picture. If I don't see the animal, even though I'm pointing in the direction that's close, what I do is I do a slow, almost spiral view out. I'm basically manufacturing field of view with my stabilized binoculars. Sounds a little crazy, but the stabilization allows you to do that. Because the sight picture is so solid, it's easy to see what you're looking at and expand beyond it. Do a loop and you can acquire the target fairly quickly. I have no issue with that, but it's something for you guys to consider, and you're for sure gonna hear it out there. There's a lot of people that bring up that one. All right, so the last thing that keeps getting brought up with IS technology right now, the offerings that are out there from Sig and whoever, the optical quality, the actual glass sucks. And the issue with this is your eye is a little biological auto-focusing camera, right? All the time your eye is doing that. When you're looking through cheaper glass that's not high-end European glass, there's not as good clarity from the, across the whole lens, not as good clarity as in general. So as you look around your field of view inside the glass, I talk about that a lot in my videos. I'll stick a video right up here on this so you can see it in action, but the short and sweet is I'll be gridding, I stop the binocular, and then I move my eye around the field of view, that one sight picture. I do that a lot. If I don't have clarity across the lens because I'm looking through poor quality glass, my eye is doing more and more autofocusing. So that's what gives you a headache. That's what makes you fatigued. That's what makes you less interested in glassing for really long duration. In these image stabilized binoculars that are out there right now, that's a real issue. These are binoculars in that $1,000 to $1,300 range. I think the Kites are $1,200. Most of the SIGs, depending on the magnification, are $1,000, $1,100, right? So that's what you're looking at. Even if the IS technology was free, you've got to realize that that's not going to be the same optical quality as a $3,000 pair of binoculars. You're going to have more of that fatigue. That's just a reality. Well, maybe you're even getting a headache or whatever. So how do you deal with that for long duration glassing sessions with these binoculars? The only solution that I have come up with is put them on a tripod. My suggestion on this is glass in spurts and let your eyes just rest so that autofocusing gets a little rest. That'll do you a whole bunch of good. Now, I know people are gonna say, well, this is why I'm keeping my 15x50 swirls, because I can throw them on my tripod. I can be in the glass for 3 hours straight, no fatigue, no headache, nothing. I don't have to take a break, Cliff, so I'm gonna keep those because they're better than your IS binoculars. Okay, I get that, but here's the issue. Most guys, they throw on their 16s, they throw on their 18s, their 12s on the tripod. They throw on the stabilization, right? They look through them for 15, 20 minutes. They take a break. During that break, they're just glassing with their eyes a little bit, which can be somewhat productive also. It's not like you're not doing anything, but they take that break, they get back into the glass. Because the IS technology is so good, even on a tripod, in most situations, you're gonna beat the guy with the 15 by 56s that is staying in the glass the whole time. So yes, it's not ideal. I think this is the big area of improvement that these companies can come in with, is higher optical quality glass with the IS technology. If this one's really important to you and you can't deal with what I just said, you're not willing to take the breaks, you're gonna keep your high-end glass at that higher magnification, you might be all right waiting for it. I'm handicapping that. Nobody or no company has come out and overtly told me they're coming out with Swirl level glass, EL level glass with IS in it, but I have a feeling that this is much more eminent than IS technology coming out with rangefinders or something like that. I think this is probably in the 9 to 12 month range. So if this is really important to you, you might wait. But you're gonna have to pay for it. They're not gonna be $1,000 IS binoculars. They might be a $2,500 IS binocular. Or if they come from Swirl or if they come from Leica, they come directly from one of those companies, you're probably looking at more of like a $5,500 binocular because you're gonna be paying for the glass plus the technology and plus all that R&D that's going in there. So consider that. But if this is a big factor for you, you're a coos deer hunter, you're a mule deer hunter who's sitting behind 15 by 56s for 15 hours a day. If that's you, you might want to wait before you get into IS technology. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got value out of it, do me a huge favor, like it, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to send you off with this video right here on time management. Super boring topic, but believe me, if you implement the stuff in that video, you're gonna start killing 2, 3, 4 times as many animals. It's just simple stuff, low-hanging fruit that a bunch of guys that have been in the hunting world for 10, 20 years are still not implementing. So get on it early and you'll be way better off. I'll catch you guys later.